I like your thumbnail. It was
Yeah, I was just
right.
like, this is a good thumbnail for today.
I mean, all it was missing is the YouTube horror face,
So yesterday, when the stream abruptly ended,
which was fucking hysterical.
yo,
By the
people
way,
messaged me. They were like, "This is hilarious." They're like, one by one, they each get knocked out. Yesterday,
that's what made me think that it was planned because it was like suddenly like
you know
Chris
what I was
left.
trying to do? I was trying to join the stream from the car. And so I clicked on this button that said edit layout, and then Chris disappears. And I'm like trying to find him. I'm trying to find him. Then I click on Vitaly. Vitaly disappears. And then I'm like, I'm not
And
gonna find these guys. So Carlos is the only one left. So he's gotta die too.
I was like, oh, so you sacrificing like all of them walked the plank. I was
I
sitting
was
there
just
to
happy it happened at
myself
the
like,
very
guys,
end and not in the
guys.
middle.
It's like a horror movie when like all your friends are dying around you, and I was like, guys, and then just cut to the splash page.
Chris disappears. I'm like, where the fuck did... And then I'm trying to add him back. And so I'm clicking on StreamYard, and then Vitaly, I'm like, fuck, if Carlos is the only one left, I guess we gotta end
Let's
it.
get him too. I see how
But
it
it was
is.
hilarious because everyone was like, "Oh, Mitch just fucking nuked
Yeah, you
this
came in
shit."
and nuked this. Because we saw the DHS. I don't know what user that is on your thing. If it's a
Yeah, that was me. I
DHS.
just typed in some random letters to join from my phone.
Oh, I
That was
thought it was
me.
like that's like a Mitt's mom saying we gotta go see the movie. All right, yo. So talk to me, Rookie. You have a girlfriend, or you trolling? You have a girlfriend?
Why are you asking me these personal questions in
What do
front
you
of
mean? You
100
posted
people?
on fucking Twitter.
Posted on Twitter what?
I'm going to see Oppenheimer with my girlfriend. So I was like, oh shit, you don't need me. Did you get homegirl from
I have
Threads?
no idea what you're talking about, bro.
Yeah,
I
all right.
don't
I'm about
like.
to see if I could share a screen. I could maybe back up my case. This is this rigged. You see, he's fucking. He's,
Bro,
he's
what is a girlfriend? It's a friend who's a woman, correct?
no,
I
that's
mean,
not.
that's what it is, right?
No. Don't go there. No.
Me and my sister
Hap-
went. I just said
Happy evening, Amit, and Carlos. Hi, Lang. Oh, it was you and your sister. You got to
yeah,
be
me and my
careful.
sister, we haven't seen a movie together in years, and so she was like, "Yo, you want to go watch it?" And I was like, "All right, let's go watch it." But I was disappointed, man. It wasn't the movie that I thought it would be. 3 hours was too long. I thought it was gonna be. I knew it was a historical rendition over something, but I thought it would be to the level of Nolan. They didn't even show the Hiroshima or Nagasaki bombing. I was like, how do you like make a film about Oppenheimer? Like, there's YouTube videos that show a
Yeah,
simulation of the bombing,
yeah.
and it's like, oh my god. And Christopher Nolan doesn't show that. Like 200,000 people died in 5 seconds, and you couldn't get show that the audience to feel that emotion. So
That would make people. That would shape public opinion about being against war.
dramatically, and he
And
just
people would
left
be
that
like,
part out.
is that what it looks like? Like there's a really good, what's that, like Real Life Lore, or one of those YouTube channels that shows like incredible simulations of what would happen, like minute by minute, second by second. And it really does make you think, like, do we really need to be doing that? Like, do we really need to be like, imagine if lions and other animals in the animal kingdom had that, where they just like nuked each other. Like hippos just went for elephants and it was a mass slaughter. Like we just sound so ridiculous, but we do it to each other,
Yeah, it's like it's such a good story to make a movie on. I agree with that. It's just the movie fell flat to me, bro.
Oh, I thought you were going to say what hippopotamuses need is Palantir.
Stop it. Yo, Johnny in the morning live stream was like, admit you had a spoiler. I was like, sorry,
Bro, Johnny.
Sorry I spoiled that we dropped a nuke on Japan. I thought people knew that. I'm like, oh, my bad. That's a spoiler.
Yeah. And then like the nuke that was dropped on ENPHASE stock like about an hour ago, as soon as they started talking. I had a feeling it was going to be bad because he does well with movies that are like fantastical dreams or like sci-fi. Like Interstellar was amazing because you're showing a world that doesn't exist in a way that it's your take on it, right? It's amazing. But when you're doing something that's historical, it's going to be a bunch of people sitting in a room talking, a lot of talking, and then eventually, getting to see the bombs be dropped. I wasn't interested in seeing it, and you confirmed that for me.
I don't go to the movies, bro. I don't do that shit. Like, I haven't gone since 2019. But for Nolan, I was like, also a soda and popcorn was $18. I was like, what is this, bro? This is like, each of the tickets were 18 too, and I was like, this is stupid. Like,
last movie I saw was The Sound of Freedom, and before that, I went to see Mario Brothers with my kids. She only let me get through like 40 minutes of it, but even that was really good. And yeah, the popcorn and fucking soda prices were insane. Although I don't know if you use that service where you pay for everything in advance and then all you do is go pick it up. Yo, that is so
That was pretty
bomb.
legit. That was
That
pretty
is
legit. I
so
was like, this is cool.
legit.
I don't have to wait in this boring ass line. I was like, this is pretty cool.
Barbie? No, I would not see the Barbie movie, and my daughter will not be seeing the Barbie movie. There's a lot of movies that my daughter's gonna grow up on Goonies. She's gonna watch E.T. Like she's just basically gonna watch all the movies from the 80s and 90s. That's all I'm gonna let her watch.
Bro,
That's
the movie ends by saying men should basically have no rights. That's like the theme of the movie. And I'm like, all right.
Well, I saw that argument on Twitter, people complaining like, oh, the way that men are portrayed. And it's like, well, women haven't necessarily been portrayed the best in all of like the big man movies. So if that's like the girl movie, fine. You can argue that maybe that's not the best. I mean, that's not the best way you should be painting men. But at the same time, like guys have been doing it for a while too. So it's like, if that's a girl movie, cool. But I don't know. A movie
Also,
like,
that's not a spoiler, bro. The entire movie is about feminism and like women empowerment. So there's no spoiler to that.
Yeah.
Anyway. All right, so Vitaly and Chris are running a little late, but we can get started on the ENPHASE discussion. So shout out to everyone who joined the freelancer channel. We were
and shout out to everybody who also had a birthday on that earnings call because it was the longest fucking earnings call history. Earnings calls, my God, it never ended.
Yeah, it was pretty long. It was long for no reason. But it was good. I think Badri had some good answers. I guess so. For you, what percentage of your portfolio is ENPHASE?
It's starting to grow. I mean, I don't have like an exact number. It's not like near my Tesla position or anything, but it's starting to grow. And the reason why it hasn't been as big of a Tesla position is I was accumulating that while ENPHASE was in its run up. But now I feel like I'm getting a chance to go back in time and purchase the shares that I wish I would have had during that time.
You did sell half at 350, right?
I sold a bunch. Yeah, I sold a bunch, but that was like a portion of the position that I bought just to play the share price. It was around the time that I wanted to pick up the Model X and I wanted to make a sizable down payment. And so I had sold a bunch of Ethereum when that had run up and moved half of it into Tesla and half of it into ENPHASE to see what it would do. And I mean, it couldn't have worked out better for me because it almost like doubled or 2.5. Yeah. And then it was able to give me a good down payment on the cars. So we have that Jesse Dow has a standing invitation. When we can work it out, we'd love to get him on, talk about a bunch of things. But yeah, definitely would want to talk about ENPHASE. Do you want to bring up that the post that he responded to? I'll bring it up if you want.
Yeah, you can bring it up.
Posted it. I got my thoughts together about what we spoke about with one of the days when we were talking about ENPHASE, about Farzad and like kind of like a bull case that I was making for it. How do I share my screen? Share screen. It's gonna be this one. So if you go, can you share that?
Yeah.
So this was a couple of days ago. I posted this about how much ENPHASE could really grow, and I was making a point that I made on the channel that in a recent video, Farzad reported auto traded data that showed 50% of American states want Teslas. There's a strong link between EV ownership and solar panels. About 28 to 40% customers have solar. So as EVs ramp, so will solar. ENPHASE and SolarEdge currently control 95% of the inverter market, 48% to 40. So just doing some rough numbers would be like 44 million to 53 million. These are individual owners, not households, but round that down 30-40 million. And just reiterating once again that we're somewhere here in the adaptation S curve. If we look at what happened with, say, camera phones, right? When it went analog to digital, that's roughly where we are. And then Jesse Dow responded, I love ENPHASE future opportunities, but the chart is a rising broadening wedge, which is really bearish. PE ratio could be cut in half. I don't have ENPHASE, but whatever, if they have a beat. And a bunch of other people responded with some different metrics. Yeah, and the takeaway is if you do look at the long-term trend of the chart, it wasn't an opening wedge, which is not good. And if we listen to some of what Badri said on the call today, his final thoughts before he left. Let's talk a little bit about that. His final thoughts before he left today were maybe I should just share this because I took some notes while he was talking. Let me see. Yeah, perfect. Can you share this?
Yes.
So I can't make it. I mean, I can't make it much bigger. There we go. So here's some stuff that he said. I was really focused on his final thoughts before they went over to the Q&A. And what he said is, my final thoughts are that we are managing through a correction. I think he believes that the solar industry is going through a correction. The solar market doubled and ENPHASE tripled. since 2020. There's only a 45% penetration, but he was saying things like the 30% EV tax credit, that price instability for energy, and that driving EV adoption are the bull case for ENPHASE moving forward. He did say, I manage my team for the long term. So he's not concerned with short-term price movements in the stock. He says, we're focusing on having best-in-class home systems, innovation, quality, and customer experience, new product innovation. We're expanding the base of installers, and we're planning $1 billion buybacks. And if you were with us on the Freelancer Finance portion of the live stream, it made me feel more secure with him as a CEO. And I think you are a lot investing in the CEO. You're investing in management, and it comes from him. And I think even people in the chat were saying, man, isn't this guy this guy must be a great CEO to work for, you know? So I think overall it was good for a long-term investor. If you're a short-term investor that was looking to sell today, no, it wasn't good for you.
Chris, did you get to look at ENPHASE at all, or no chance yet?
Nah, dude, I just woke up. I was more concerned with the Bank of Japan, some of the comments that they...
Yeah, we got to talk about that shit, man. We got to talk about
that was more interesting to me earlier today, how basically the market dumped. But to be honest, it's something that we kind of already knew. It's not really the Bank of Japan that's the issue.
So let's finish ENPHASE for like 10 more minutes, then we'll move to Bank of Japan, because that's the whole reason the market dumped at the end. So Vitaly, let's get your thoughts on ENPHASE earnings.
You hear me?
Yep, we hear you.
I also got some notes, but Carlos probably covered a lot of it. So we discussed this on Freelancer Finance. He discussed 4 to 5 total percent penetration in the United States. I still think it's lower all over the world. They're heavily expanding into Europe, which is important. So I think the real hit here is that as Europe grows, United States has contracted because of the rate increases. But what's kind of interesting is that the gross margin, I think he said 46.2% gross margin still. I could be wrong on that, but it was still high.
He says they improved the gross margins to 45.5. That was quarter over quarter. So 45.5.
Which is still, I found that a bit weird that even though he knows it's that solar has contracted a bit, I still like, why haven't you lowered it? I kind of like Elon's thing is like, I just want to sell the most amount of cars. Why isn't he saying, I just want to sell the most amount of microinverters?
He kind of addressed that. He said something, and again, I wrote them quickly, so I'm not sure exactly, but he mentioned something about the gross margins, saying that the gross margins do not include the IRA benefits. And I think that the IRA benefits at the end of this year become point of sale. So that means when you go to buy it, you're actually...
I didn't hear that.
It works that way with EVs, and that's where I'm unclear. Like with EVs, like now you currently have to pay full price for the car, and you get a $7,500 credit on your taxes. But later on, they're going to be able to apply for that, and then you'll get that at the point of sale. So the customer will actually have $7,500 off the install. So that's what I think he was saying. Why it doesn't make sense to compress the margins.
Well, yeah, but either way, this is a short-term thing. Obviously, we know rates are going up, and it's not helping ENPHASE. So at the end of the day, the rates have affected it. Chris, correct. Rates have affected things like cars as well. Elon, I think, pivoted to selling more cars by lowering prices. Badri from ENPHASE doesn't want to pivot to selling cheaper goods. He wants to keep prices high. But the bull case still is in effect. We only have 5%, let's say, penetration, 95% to go before solar takes over. And if you haven't looked recently, I forgot what agency was saying this, but I think it was 53% of new solar happening in 2023. I'm sorry, new energy, actual grid scale is 53% now. So we are moving away clearly from oil. And I tweeted about this. I forgot the exact stat, but you can see a tweet that this is happening. Cars themselves, the car manufacturers have now banded together and are making, you heard this, 30,000 charging stations. I think you guys have heard this. Well,
the biggest air quotes
the point is that these wheels are moving, and they're gonna continue moving. So new countries that are being adopted. Of course, he talked about a lot of them. I think I wrote down some of them. Let me see.
Italy, UK, Sweden, Austria,
Denmark, Greece,
Poland,
Denmark,
Greece. Yeah.
Germany's growing really fast. And besides that, they have the IQ8P, which is for small commercial, which is actually really important because ENPHASE right now, if you don't know that, is mostly residential. So commercial is not using this. So the fact that they're now going into small commercial is actually a big deal. And I hope that continues where they actually go into larger commercial.
What he also said real quick on that point was that he noticed that the M 3.0 is actually pushing people to get the full stack. So they're selling more people on batteries and other services because of NEM 3.0, which has made it so that even with the lowered incentives, people are still getting a 7 to 8 year full payoff of their systems by getting a bigger stack. So it kind of works out for them, even though it's not everybody. It still is working for them. And that's when he was talking about installers need to be better about educating the customers on this, because they hear NEM 3.0, I'm not making any money, and it's also been hurting sales.
Right, and the battery thing as well, because we know their batteries aren't selling like hotcakes yet, but they're lowering costs by going to a 4th gen battery. They discussed lowering 7 boards to 2, which is important. So I think they're doing like innovation. That's what you're buying here. They're innovating in the solar business, as opposed to a lot of other companies which are not innovating. SolarEdge is being a clear example. They stopped innovating, and that's why ENPHASE got the lead. And in terms of buybacks, which is interesting, they approved 500 million. This was last year, by the way, in buybacks. They've already spent it. They've got their buybacks.
They just finished, yeah.
And now they approved $1 billion. So they think their stock is undervalued. They wouldn't do this, and they wouldn't double it. The board has approved more buybacks. So I think, once again, to summarize, solar is not dying. It still has 95% to go to take over the United States. Even if it takes over 50%, we will all make a lot of money.
A ton.
And ENPHASE is the clear leader here. A SolarEdge, if you want to hedge your bet, go ahead. It's only 2 companies. Go ahead, buy both. Once again, if TJ Rogers is also buying at 160, so now you're getting it for 140. There you go.
Signed by Palantir tomorrow.
All right, Chris. Everyone in the comments is asking, "Are you buying ENPHASE?"
Not right now. I'll wait until. No, I'm just
gonna
dip.
Is this
No,
dip
no,
not
no.
exciting
I'm
for
not.
you yet, or no?
It's not the dip. It's not the dip. It's just credit conditions, man. Like, that's the thing. The theory behind this is that in lower credit condition, in a higher credit environment, ENPHASE is going to underperform because the cost of, individuals putting up solar panels is going to be really hard. It's just individuals are going to have to make choices, and I'm not sure too many people want to pay 12% a year in interest rate just to, fuck this hat, man. Today just literally
Chris is done with the hat.
I'm going Amit, bro. Today I'm just gonna
fuck this ponytail.
All right,
you don't want Carplos to come out right now, guys.
Yeah. So
bro, I look like an emo teenager who's depressed or something.
I thought you were.
You got the Illuminati
when
eye going.
When I first started speaking to Amit, I really did think man, he's emo as fuck. Whatever. So basically, it's just.
Wait, so what do you think is the dip then? 100? 120? What?
I mean, you never.
Dip, then?
To be honest, you don't know what the pricing is going to end up being, because the market's very speculative. I think, but I can tell you an entry point. I can tell you the minute that the Fed pivots and starts to legitimately cut rates, or even give a signal that they're done with raising, that could be a good entry point. Because then what happens is you have this untapped market of people looking to get rooftop solar that's being pent up and built up over time. So it's almost like the dam breaks. As the interest rates go lower, business actually starts expanding, because now you have a lot more people looking to get rooftop solar, right?
I feel like that makes a lot of sense for the bull case for ENPHASE, but I don't know if the stock will be at this level when that's basically baked in. Like when the market realizes it's time for things to go.
Well, the thing is, the market's forward looking, right? So you just have to be one step ahead of the market. And, it's not hard. It's not hard, but it's also not easy. I mean, on the other hand, I was looking at First Solar today. First Solar was climbing. And the reasoning for that is, in my opinion, is because the cost of doing grid scale solar is actually getting much cheaper, because the price of panels is fucking so low. So as the price of panels come down, when you're doing a grid install, it's actually relatively cheap, and access to capital for them is probably cheaper too, because they probably have all sorts of government subsidies and programs. And most of the energy companies, utility companies, they're looking to go solar anyway. It's not like they want to replace an old existing coal plant with another old existing coal plant. They're going to want to pivot to something more greener, because that's the one that's going to be less taxing on them. So I think from a utility scale standpoint, it makes a lot more sense to do solar right now, because it's naturally, like you said, there's very little penetration. The question is on the residential side, residential solar, unless credit conditions improve, we're likely to see this. And this is the problem that I think a lot of big companies are going to have, like Tesla and everything else, trying to get people to get the financing to buy these really expensive items. If you're monthly in if you have an energy bill that's like $200-$300, and you went solar like a year and a half, 2 years ago, dude, the solar way was the easiest. Like, you're barely paying 2-3% on the financing portion of it if you got a good rate, or maybe even 5%. If you do a personal loan, I guess. On the other hand, if you do it now, you're paying quite a bit more. So the value proposition isn't there. So I'm guessing solar installers are gonna have some issues right now trying to convince people to get solar in general. So just like I said, I would say wait for the Fed to give some more clarity on when they're likely to pivot, and then that's when you want to buy, because then it's just like,
I think they already gave that clarity by saying, we don't think there's a recession coming. Didn't they say this?
Well,
so
kind of said it, pal.
No, they explicitly did say that. They did say that.
But
I think they're giving you. They're not raising anything else, or even if they do, it's like a quarter point is not stopping solar adoption. That's not what's happening. It's that it's like we said, it's 5 over 5%. That leads to an 8 to 10% for solar, because that's when you're going to a bank and getting that loan. So that's the problem. So, but another quarter point, that's not the issue here.
But I also want to make a counterpoint to what you're saying. Like, most of the things that are affected by the rising interest rates are luxury purchases, right? So if I want to go buy a car, I can say I just don't want to buy a car right now, or I can keep the car that I have at my regular cost. But solar, or specifically the energy that you buy, you're still paying a monthly bill. So if you understand the way that energy prices have been moving, and especially how they peaked during the summer, you recognize that even if you're paying slightly higher interest rate, just the fact that your solar bill is only paying off financing on equipment and not going to fluctuate with the rising energy prices, that in itself is an incentive. And so I think that comes down to education. That was one of the big things that pushed me to get solar. I didn't give a shit about the rate, because I'm like, every summer I get a $1,500 bill in August, no matter what I do. And then in the winter, it's super cheap. I don't want to get surprised with a big bill in the middle of the summer. And my solar bill at the time, I paid off the solar since then, but I think the solar bill came in at, it was either 191 or 212. And it was that bill every single month, because all I was doing was paying the gear. And I think that's a big thing so the rate does matter, yes, in terms of it. But if you're not paying your energy bill and you get that, and you have the same bill every month, also knowing that whether it's, say, 6 years versus 7 years to pay it off, you do know that somewhere down the line, you're not going to have a bill anymore. And now you're generating your power for free.
And also, we just talked about gas prices going up. In fact, I just read an article that energy is going back up. So if that is happening, then I think people will be pushed. But to Carlos's point, it's an educational problem. If someone says to me and sits me down and says, okay, you're going to pay $200 to the electric company, or $200 for 6 years to a solar company, but you own your energy after 6 years, and you understand this, it's the obvious choice. It's not the rate per se. It's just explaining, hey, I'll give you the same exact bill, but in 6 years you're done, or in 10 years you're done. That's hard. That's actually hard. A lot of people don't understand this. Like, they don't want to do the math.
That's where the installers need to get better. That's where the installers need to get better at explaining that. It's the same argument that you make about, does it really matter the rate that you're paying on the house that you bought if the tenants are covering the mortgage anyway? You know what I mean? You're going to be less concerned with the price, as long as you know you can keep it at 100% occupancy and it's not costing you anything. You don't really care about a point here or there, because you know that the tenants are paying it. And eventually you can always go and refinance. So I really think it's more of an education problem and the sticker shock of the total cost of the system that people just don't understand. Because once you explain it to someone, and if you have a good installer, a good company, and that's the other part of this too, is like, ENPHASE is not selling these things directly to the customers. They are selling them through installers that need to push units so that they can stay afloat. And so they are incentivized to do whatever they need to do. And I think Battery is kind of hoping or banking on them cutting into their own profit margins on the install versus getting a discount on the equipment, because there's no guarantee that would translate to the customer anyway, right? If the installer can get the microinverters cheaper, they don't necessarily have to tell the clients that. They don't have to pass that on to the consumer. So that was my thinking on that.
So I think at the end, yes, rates matter, because not everybody's educated. So at that point, I agree. And we'll have to wait until next year till a pause or rates come down or whatever. But the point is, you have to look at the quality of the company you're buying. You're not buying a spec stock here. It made 225 million this quarter. It has 1.8 billion in cash. They're buying $1 billion worth back of shares, which we talked about before, and they're worth under 20 billion. So they're buying 5% of their float. So I'm saying there's a lot of positives that if you are willing to wait, they will play out. If you're not willing to wait, then you shouldn't buy it because it might go down.
I mean, it's trading at pre-2021 prices right now, which is kind of crazy considering the revenue has gone up significantly since then. So yeah, I mean, if they can keep repeating that, that's fine. My biggest thing is I haven't looked at the numbers just like comparison yet, but that the quarter over quarter numbers, how did they look? Because that's what actually concerned me.
They lost 200 million. I mean, they made 200 million less than was expected for this quarter. And the Q3 guidance.
Well, there you go. That's your answer, right?
Yep. OpEx was 98.2 million versus 98.4 in Q1. Let's see the other numbers.
I just think a lot of people are ready to buy this stock. I don't know if this dip lasts as long as people think it lasts. I mean, yeah, it could go down to 120, 100-ish, but I don't know. I think people are ready to buy this one up.
It's like we were saying on the other call.
I'm saying
by the way, it's good if it goes down. I keep saying it. If you actually want more shares, why do you need it to go up? Because let's say it sits at $200 for the next year. Well, I'm not selling at $200. Well, how's that going to help me? So it sits at $200. It doesn't do anything. I'm not selling at $200. I need it at 100 or 117, actually 117, 130. That's what I've been waiting for, I think, over a year now. And if it happens, I've already started converting my dividends to ENPHASE, basically. That's already started. That's what I need. I need lower prices, not to sit at 170 for the rest of time.
Chris, go ahead. You're going to say something?
No, I'm just saying, don't fight the Fed. The Fed right now is still in tightening mode. No matter how much we want them to stop, they're still going on. And the signaling was very bullish from the Fed yesterday, which was surprising. But, I'm looking at the general market. I can tell you there is a reacceleration
as well. You can transition to that now. What's going on there? Why does that matter? Why does that affect the general market?
Well, Japan is the largest buyer of treasuries outside the United States, right? It used to be China, I think, at some point, and then Japan. They've always been active buyers of our debt. So they typically buy a shit ton of our debt. And BOJ basically said, you know what? We are considering, changing some of our policies, and, the appetite for U.S. debt in the future may not necessarily come from Japan, who's been our largest buyer. So if you look at the 10-year treasury spiked about 4% today, which means that, according to the bond market, which I'll say it again, equity guys are dumb as fuck compared to the bond guys. The bond guys are the smartest people on the street. So if the bond guys are seeing something, they're moving in that direction. So one of the things that they're seeing is a trade around reacceleration of inflation. And so, there's been a couple of things that are already leading the indicators. Number one is, of course, the fuel prices. WTI, I think, hit $80 today. That's going to filter into the general market. Then you've got commodities, which have also been growing. The prices have been just going up, up, and up. So that doesn't help. So what we thought was a very, a really good market where inflation was taking a dump, we're starting to see the things that led the way in reducing down the inflation, which was the commodities and the fuel prices. Those are going up. So that means that inflation is becoming a little bit more stickier. You're also seeing a lot more wage inflation, right? That's another bad. Well, technically, it's a good thing for the people because you want to get paid more, but it's a bad thing because that means that you're getting a more stickier inflation read. So right now, the jobs report came out today. Job reports was really good. GDP is really good. So a lot of the signs that typically in a healthy economy would boost the markets much higher, right now they're acting kind of negative. Now, what was surprising today was the PCE number came in lower, but the GDP number came in higher, which means that inflation is starting to cool down. But at the same time, the GDP is growing. So that's usually not the case together. Now, there's something to be said about that because when it comes to PCE and everything, all these things are lagging, right? They're looking backward in time. You don't want to try to do policy based on yesterday's numbers. You want to do them based on today's numbers and possibly some projections on future numbers. And we can see that prices of stuff, like food and energy is going up. So And shelter, no matter what we're doing right now, shelter is not coming down fast enough. Shelter has actually come down significantly, especially multifamily rental. But at the same time, shelter is holding up really well. So what was supposed to lead the next leg down in terms of inflation is not doing that. And the legs that let us lower are actually getting the opposite way. So I told you the biggest thing I'm worried about in this market, of course, is going to be around reacceleration of inflation. If we get a hot print on CPI, which at this point, what is it, the 27th? There's no way to escape that. You're going to see the markets tank, right? So right now, the best strategy that you can apply is by just high classing your portfolio. Look for companies that are growing like crazy, that have great cash flows, that can weather the storm, and can actually reinvest that money into buying more share buybacks and everything else.
It's like he's talking about ENPHASE again.
and not be in a basket of speculative companies. Right now you've seen that over the last month, all these speculative companies have run up. If you've made really good money on those, I would say take some goddamn profit and move your money either into some cash in the short term or move it into companies like Google, Meta, Microsoft, Amazon, because those companies will be fine.
Are you sure those companies are going to be okay as inflation reaccelerates? Because they have pretty frothy valuations right now as well. I don't know.
That was the first question. That was the first question that they asked him. The New York Times chick asked him right after he talked for an hour. She's like, so if you get good numbers on CPI and the economy seems to be doing well, like what would you do? And he was, without saying it, he was like, we don't want to see that because that's going to make us have to tighten it a little bit more. Yeah. So I was saying in the chat that I feel like he's trying. I think he's going to continue to push until he feels things are starting to break. And then, then cool off and let it go from there.
We might end up seeing a flash crash, right? I know that sounds like too simplistic, but this is what if I had to guess the scenario that's coming up, I would say there's going to be a flash crash where the numbers that come out are just so poor in terms of CPI, in terms of like headline CPI growing, that people just dump everything. And people dump everything, buying opportunities will present themselves. It'll be a couple of maybe months of just super bearishness, like, oh my God, inflation's coming back. The Fed is going to have to go fucking Volcker, like the 1980s. And then the rest of this stuff will come back. Like a lot of the commodity price increases have pretty much been driven by more supply side issues rather than demand side stuff. So like I told you, the example of the Russians and the wheat exports, like them cutting off, like Ukraine's a really big exporter of all sorts of grains. So by that happening, now you're seeing food prices come up. India just recently had like a bad year in terms of weather. They're the largest rice exporters in the world. They banned rice exports to the United States. It was so bad. I don't know if you saw it. There's fucking people in Texas that were just going like Indian people fighting over rice, like bags of rice, right? So I think overall, this is where you just have to take a step back and be like, okay, do I want to be in this hyped up bull market? Do I want to take a step back? And which industries are likely to be impacted best in the short term in terms of like growth wise, and which ones are going to take the biggest hits? Like I would say right now, two areas that tend to do really well in this are banks, of course, because banks are going to be able to lend money at higher interest rates, for people to finance their day-to-day life. So their net interest income margins will go up. And the other one is energy, because right now, if price of WTI, all this stuff goes up, futures contracts look good, and all of a sudden now everyone starts raising price targets on energy companies, which are beaten down. I mean, most of these energy companies are trading, like I think Devon is trading at like 4 or 5 PE, and they're generating so much goddamn cash flow. So I think the best trade to be in for the next 6 months might actually be oil, energy.
I just don't see how, when you have like an ESG metric, how like even tapping a company like ENPHASE for your business is good for your ESG score. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like on the environmental side of it, it just to me, none of this doesn't make any sense.
Listen, ESG is this. It's the trend that everyone's been doing, which is just greenwashing. Like you get the most unethical companies in terms of like business, they're still got better ESG score. Like British American Tobacco, fucking Philip Morris, they have great ESG scores, but what do? They literally sell death on a fucking like in a pack.
Yeah.
Think about that for a second. Like that's like literally killing people, yet they have better ESG scores. So what the fuck does ESG at this point mean? Just because you hired some more Black people and Hispanic people that you think that your business is, like more sustainable? Like, bro, just I'm telling you, a lot of these metrics are stupid. They're really just dumb. Like this is the way that companies, like, I don't know.
Let's
I never thought
transition.
yeah.
Let's transition to this. Intel. This is stock you're actually kind of bullish on, Chris, a couple months ago. Intel jumped 7%, and Vitaly jumped 7% as it returns to profitability after 2 quarters of losses.
That guy looks happy.
Revenue $12.9 billion versus 12.13. Earnings per share 13 cents.
What was driving it? Did they fire a bunch of people? Like, what was driving that?
Everyone was expecting a Lizzo. Who shows up? Nicki Minaj.
Wait, okay, so that's all it was? It was just a beat on consensus, or was it actually that they're improving? Did they fire a bunch of people? Or
No.
I think they beat on consensus. That was the big thing that I saw.
Telling you, if you think
all right, but
what's
the trailing 12 months? Like, what's the quarter-over-quarter? Because like beating estimates is fine, but it's a lot of times the analysts don't get it wrong, and sometimes you'll have that one guy who's like super bullish or really bearish, and they throw off what the estimate consensus is anyway. So, I mean, let's look at the stock price over the last 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, it's been flat, or it came down a lot a year ago. But I mean, they beat nicely.
It's been bad over 20 years. It's so it's not only 5 years.
But I mean, they
beat a 500% beat. Bro, we were expecting Lizzo, and fucking like Shakira showed up at this point. I'm sorry, I got my favorites in my head.
Ren
we know what Chris is masturbating to at night.
Hips don't lie. Godzilla showed up.
And now they're saying, and VI is saying in the chat that the ESG is dead, and Larry killed it.
Larry killed ESG? He's not ESG?
Yeah, I was like, can you send him? He's like, just YouTube it, which I will. But then I want to know what's the next thing he's moving on. Is he part of this WorldCoin thing? People fucking scanning their.
Wait, go to WorldCoin.
What's he doing? What are you doing, Larry?
Roku had earnings. What had happened with Roku? So they're up $76, up 8% after hours.
And that one of Kathy's joints?
That's Kathy's joint. What did Roku do?
Kathy knew something.
Okay,
I think we're all transitioning from good quality to bad quality stocks. That's what we're doing.
There's a rotation in the market.
There's a rotation of the shit.
Analysts expected 775 million. They brought in 847 million. It's a nice beat. Not bad.
Told you, everyone expecting Lizzo. They didn't get Lizzo. They got Nicki Minaj.
But that's different. Like that's different. You have to take that with a grain of salt, because if the market was predicting it correctly, then it would just be considered it was on point with estimates, and the stock wouldn't have moved.
Even on EPS, they only lost 76 cents a share. The market thought they would lose $1.26 a share. That's amazing.
Telling you, everyone's keep expecting these Lizzos to show up. That's what happens. I'm telling you, every stock where everyone was expecting Beyonce to show up, Lizzo did and tanked, right? The other hand, Lizzo was the one that was expected, and who ended up showing up? Nicki Minaj.
Well, not Meta. Everyone expected Beyonce for Meta, and Beyonce showed up for Meta.
To Beyonce.
I mean, once in a while, that's what happens, I mean,
Jeremy sold all his Meta today.
What?
He just posted on Twitter. He's like, I'm completely out of Meta.
That was that clickbait, or he was?
No. He's like, I'm out of it. He's like, congratulations, everyone, but I'm out. I'm moving my money.
Hey, what? I want to see this.
He was up $345,000. So he put 230 up to 543, and
that's pretty good.
I typed in Jeremy Financial, nothing comes up.
No, it's on Twitter.
I typed in Holy Smokers, then it pops up.
Yeah.
Okay,
he says, whoa, I just sold out of all my shit. Yeah, there it is.
Oh, there's a video he posted.
Yeah.
There you go. He's up 345 grand.
So he sold. He's like, I'm out. And he's then later, I didn't get to watch it, but then he says what he.
That probably means it's going to double.
Then he said, afterwards, he spoke about what he actually bought with it.
What did he, do you know what
I didn't get a chance to watch it. Like, we had 10 minutes between the calls. I had to eat and like say hi to my wife for a second. And I was like, we were on that call forever, Badri. So what did he buy? He was buying.
He bought Amazon. Okay, we got 43 shares of Amazon.
So he bought Amazon, which I'm gonna guess Google the other one because
PayPal. PayPal. More PayPal.
All right, bought Amazon, PayPal.
Oh, did he follow me into my options play on PayPal? He's YOLOing too.
You want to tell everyone what your options play is? What did you do yesterday on PayPal?
Sure. It's on our Discord. Obviously, guys join up. But basically, I looked out to 2025 and I said, "All right, what's the cheapest option I can get on PayPal?" It was $145. strike price for $2.70. And I was like, you know what?
Oh,
I'll
look.
buy some.
Real quick, they're saying he sold Oatly, not Meta.
Oh, okay. That makes more
Carlos,
sense.
you fucking click it.
I'm
clickbaited
just
us.
saying,
He
I
clickbaited us.
watched like 5 minutes of the video, so I was like, what?
I was surprised you said Meta. I was like, wait a second, what? Okay.
Yeah, because he keeps talking about how it's going to 500. But anyway, so I bought 20 contracts of the 270, 145 strike 2025. And I just looked at, okay, what does it have to be for me to even double my money? It has to be over $100. So it's not a dissimilar play to what we've been doing already to Chris when we were doing those other options. It just has to be over $100 basically, or even $95. And I think that's very possible for PayPal over 2 years for me to double my money. But if it goes ham,
what's the max loss? What's the max loss and max gain?
Well, I paid $5,000 for the options. It's $2.70. So I paid $5,000 and change. That's my loss. I lose my premium. But if it goes, okay, it's crazy numbers. It's honestly crazy numbers. If it actually goes back to $200 because there's a gap and all the gaps that we talked about, it's $100,000.
So this is a call. That's all it is.
It's a call. It's a 20x if it actually happens, and if it doesn't and it's $100, it's a double. So I don't see a lot of loss for me.
Why isn't other? Do you think is there a lot of liquidity?
Why isn't everybody gambling now?
No. But
so
I'm
not saying this is me doing it. This is not financial advice for anybody to go do crazy options. I just took a small little chunk of money.
I get it. My question is just if it's that big of a risk reward and so many people are bullish on PayPal, how come I haven't heard of other people taking this 5K to 100K bet? Like, are you the only one that found out yesterday this is a thing?
I mean, it could have been even better if you bought it when it was like $60. It would have cost you like $1.
That's true.
But also just go on Yahoo and look at the open interest. It'll tell you how many contracts were bought.
There is actually a lot of open interest for it, or enough that I was like, oh, people are paying attention to this. So, and even in a medium case, this stock should be at $140 or so. So I see a lot of upside here. Having said that, if I lose $5,000, it doesn't affect me. By the way, ENPHASE has affected me more in one day than losing $5,000 on PayPal.
Right. There's a lot of money to be made as those companies return to the mean.
That's right. It's a mean reversion, Chris.
That's the truth.
I think Chris got all of us on this idea of like mean reversion. Pick companies that just have to go back to normal. That's it.
Mean reversion.
Well, but PayPal, we discussed this, but PayPal is being heavily discounted and it's being just totally shat on in the market while they're still growing, while they just got a new deal. Who did they get a sign with?
Microsoft.
With Microsoft. So like PayPal, Venmo still growing. I still use it basically daily. So I think it's undervalued. Bottom line.
Crossroads.
This is for 2025, Vitaly?
Crossroads at
I like buying options. I don't buy short-term options. So people who get smashed, like we're talking about ENPHASE being smashed, I have options for ENPHASE in 2025. Believe me, it's not going to be at $150, which are my strike prices. So I'm not worried about those options for 2025.
You think there is no chance in hell ENPHASE is 150 by 2025?
Yeah, another full
I personally would say 99.99% no chance in hell. But once again, anything is possible.
What if the Fed doesn't cut rates in 2024?
Say it again?
What if the Fed doesn't cut rates in 2024?
I don't think the rate story will stop ENPHASE from being over $150. Let me put it this way.
I just think there's like things like the incentives are still in place. That post at the very beginning of this call, that there's a correlation between EV ownership and EVs are being pushed. So there's a lot of other industries that are pushing people towards that anyway. And I can't see how ENPHASE is not over 300 in 2024.
If that's the case, my options will look very pretty over 300. But yeah.
What do the charts look like? I had the chart up now. Let me see. So what would that put it?
I put the link in the chat. This is the last pod for this week until Sunday. So if anyone wants to join and ask a question, Chris does not hate PayPal. You guys are just instigating stuff in the chat.
Yeah, man. What the fuck?
Like, Matt, come on, bro. This is your new podcast co-host. You got to know some of his positions, buddy. He's got PayPal options. By the way, shout out to Matt and Chris's new pod, Cash Flow Chronicles. It's on Matt's channel every week. Johnny, if you could plug that in the chat, that'd be awesome. You can check them out 10 p.m. at night.
Yeah, real quick, Amit, while you're waiting. So if ENPHASE, if you just draw a line through this, right, in terms of like the general trend. So you're saying 2024. If we just in 2024 and we just stay, look where we're at. Like this was Jesse's point about the gap, right? The widening gap of the or the widening wedge pattern that ENPHASE has been in. So you could argue that it's been, again, it's just like disproportionately sold off as much as it disproportionately ran up. So if you just look at the average, the median, and we go up to 2024, say January 2024, we're at $326. So there might be a range within that, but the general trajectory of this stock is up and to the right.
Yo, TJ, how much are you getting assigned, bro? How many does it hit the? Because I think he had 150 strikes on these. So tomorrow,
At so many shares, he's out of SoFi now.
He must have gotten all of his shares executed if he had the cash secured puts in.
Matt saying, I know Chris has shit. No, Chris has spreads. He has some contracts on PayPal. Okay, so talked about ENPHASE, talked about PayPal, talked about the Bank of Japan. Yeah, there's not that much else. McDonald's had great earnings, so Americans are getting fatter.
That's horrible.
American had great.
I think
earnings.
Disney.
Fucking horrible.
I was
Disney,
telling you. I think
the last 15 minutes talking about a little bit on Disney.
You want to talk a little bit about Mitch McConnell?
Yeah, if no one's joined, oh man, that was crazy,
bro. That man had
The
a
Odd Couple.
fucking stroke on camera. It was either a stroke or a seizure, like on camera. Like that was scary as shit.
That Dianne Feinstein had her moment where they were just like, hey, just say I, and she was like going in tangents because she's like mentally checked out. I'm telling you, bro, we got most of our fucking. Huh? Go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to ask, do you think that we should have, like we have a minimum age to serve in government? Do you think we should have a maximum age that you can
100%.
serve in Congress? And what age should that be? And then the other question is, what would be the ideal age? So what would be the cap? If you you can write the laws tomorrow.
Like 75, it's time to hang it up, bro. 75.
Yeah, I don't think there should be an age limit, but I think every single politician needs to do three things. Number
No, but
one,
hold on, Chris. Why is there an
Yeah.
age limit to be a president?
Yeah.
But there's not an age limit to retire.
man, you don't want no uncle like fucking Kim Kardashian at 18, 19.
Okay, so you don't want Mitch
popular.
McConnell at ready to fucking hit the bucket, like, you know.
But let me explain. Okay.
go ahead.
When you're super young, you're not very well versed in the world. Okay. You don't really know much. And the populace, I hate to say this, 90% are fucking troglodytes. They're idiots that can be manipulated very easily.
Troglodyte.
Okay.
Hold on, I'm using that word tomorrow morning. What does it mean?
So troglodyte, look it up. It's like an
animal with a small brain.
Yeah. Well, it's a creature. It's like a creature. I mean, if you ever played
I'm
so
using that in the
people
morning
can be manipulated very easily, especially like with younger crowds and everything else. So look at who the most popular people are in the world right now. It's fucking like the Kim Kardashians of the world, right? Nicki Minaj is the world, and if not Nicki Minaj, I keep getting her in my brain right now. You know, like just people are dumb, so you have to put some guardrails around it. I think having someone with a little bit more, at least in terms of age, it's probably a good thing because at least they've experienced some worldviews out there. They've been in through life where they've actually paid some fucking taxes, that they've actually had to deal with some issues day to day. I mean, bro, you got fucking stupid bartenders in Congress right now. You got people who are. The other thing is, I think there should be a minimum of a IQ test and a fucking civics test that you have to pass in order to be a politician. There was a fucking oh my god, there's a House representative. Did I show you guys? This guy was asking like the U.S. Navy, like one of the generals or admirals in the Navy, like if so. The whole congressional hearing was about putting more troops on the island. This motherfucker comes out and says, "Oh, if we put more troops on the island, will it tip over?"
What?
Yeah, Hank Johnson, and this guy's been elected fucking like constantly, keeps coming back to office.
Have you ever watched the Herschel Walker speech, dude? It's painful.
Oh God,
it's
man!
Painful. But here's the counter to that argument. You're right. We need to have a minimum age because you have to have some life experience. You have to have some life experience in order to be able to write laws over a majority of the population. But my argument would be you have to have an age limit because otherwise that person is too far removed from the youngest generation that they're writing legislation for. And what you get is too much legacy thinking from the past. So this is the thinking of you should not be, I'm going to say maybe 2 generations. You shouldn't be no more than 2 generations removed from the youngest population you're serving. So if we're talking about people 18, 20 years old, you should be no more than 70 because you're just too far removed from what the world was like when you were that age to know what's best for that population. And in a good, healthy economy, most of the population is on the younger side anyway. So I would say 70, 75. And then on top of that, have term limits because I think having no term limits in Congress is what puts these people in perpetual campaign mode.
Even if you weren't going to have like an age limit, I do agree on an age limit, but you should have like a health, mental, wellness, IQ, like that should just happen, especially after like 60. Just start doing that. That should be part of the thing. Because if you can't function running the government. Why should you be there?
I think these motherfuckers all need to take the SAT test every single year, and whatever their test results should be published so that you know who you voted for.
No, it should be.
Island that at its widest level is 12 miles from shore to shore, and at its smallest level or smallest location,
You thought
it's
about this a long time.
7
Like he thought this was a gotcha moment.
Between one shore
You got to
and
see
the
the
other.
admiral's face. Watch this.
Is that correct?
I don't have the exact dimensions, but to your point, sir, I think Guam is a small island.
Very
relatively.
small island and about 24 miles, if I recall, long. So 24 miles long, about 7 miles wide at the least widest place on the island, and about 12 miles wide on the widest part of the island.
Does he think it's floating
And
in the ocean just randomly?
I don't know how many square miles that is. Do you happen to know?
I don't have that
It's
figure
like
with me, sir. I can certainly supply it to you if you'd like.
Yeah, my fear is that the whole island will become so overly populated that it will tip over and capsize.
We don't anticipate that. The Guam population, I think, currently about 175,000, and again, with 8,000 Marines and their families, it's an addition.
Oh my God.
It's like a senator. We sell ads. All right, we got someone in the background. Let's get him on. Crossroads. What's up?
Hey guys,
What's up?
just bought my first ENPHASE position on the dip. I was waiting for it. I know that there's more dips probably to come, but since I had none, I wanted to get some because I don't know how far it'll fall. Another TJ
Smart man.
Rogers company yesterday, Innovix, had, I thought, pretty good earnings. I really
Earnings.
want.
You did?
Well, no, their earnings was good. Yeah.
No, well, you mean earnings call or actual
Earnings call.
Okay,
Call. Yeah.
Okay.
No, they're producing they're beating projections. They're ramping. It's going to be 2024 till they really seriously ramp, and 2025 maybe for profitability. But my question, and you guys talked about it a little bit yesterday, was on TJ Rogers' letter regarding all these shorts people. Like that, just looking over that, sleeping on it, it just really hit me the wrong way. And I ended up actually, I want to get back into Innovix, but I sold my position out completely. I'd sold most of it. I sold all of it above 20, made some really good money. And that's actually, I went from TJ Rogers company to TJ Rogers company, and I've got more money on the side waiting to buy more of that. But
I got to agree with you though. That letter I did not like. 10 pages of discussing the shorts who have 2,600 followers. It's so
Look,
silly.
I felt the same way. And then last night I had a long exchange with Rango about it. We were just DMing back and forth about it. And he made a couple of really good points. And he was saying the reason why TJ Rogers did that is because at some point they're going to need to access the capital markets. And the capital markets sometimes believe the short reports. And so he needed to just come out and attack them. And then he reminded me, he's like, don't
We
you
need to
remember
attack the troglodytes.
the troglodyte and people that are troglodyting up on his fucking capital? So he reminded me of basically how insane mode that Elon Musk went on when they were short selling Tesla like crazy, how he would like respond to people, how he would quote tweet shit from MSNBC. He would go on and call people out. And he was saying a lot of that's because they just needed to have or to protect the ability to raise money from the capital market. So I started thinking about it and I was like, you know what? You're probably right. Like that's probably.
I told you guys it's good. I like it.
No,
but wait a minute.
Elon doesn't respond to them now.
Well,
He
just
doesn't
FYI, TJ in one of his calls, I think in January, he said we are going to go to the capital markets for our, I forgot what gen line, maybe Johnny knows in the comments, but we are going to go to the capital markets, raise money. He said that. And that's when the stock stanked. That's when the stock tanked. $10.
It
was
chocolate
over
dipped.
2 days. It stanked.
Well, I must have missed that because I was operating under the assumption that he had said that they had 2 years of runway. Like we even calculated how much money they had in the bank, how much money they were spending per quarter. And I think it was like whatever, 10 million a quarter, whatever it was. And we're like, oh, they've got at least this much in the bank. So it starts to make sense. But it's good. It's nice when like the viewers out there can bring
Anyway,
some
Crossroads, I'm sorry, we stole your show. Go ahead.
No, that might have been something I missed because I thought that we had cashed through 2024 because we
Me
had
too.
the loan lineup
But he said as we get more gen lines, we're going to need money. Watch his call in January. He said we're going to have to go at this point to the capital markets, and then it was real quick, but he did say it.
Yeah, but now Johnny's saying they got the financing. So I'm like,
yeah,
this is what I thought. They didn't need the money, so they're just operating like from.
They're always going to need the money. That's bullshit.
Kind of, but I mean, it just didn't add up to me. So I'm still very bullish on the company. I've got the alarm set, and when it gets under 15, I'll start adding again, and it'll probably go a lot lower than 15, hopefully. But I mean, there's no guarantees. And
what stocks have you held for like a couple of years now, Crossroads? Do you have any?
Palantir. I was basically at one point.
You set them up for that, man.
Like 90% Palantir. And speaking of Palantir, Amit,
so you're still down.
No, Palantir is 50%. I took some gains. I had some leap positions. It was a small position, but those things, like I bought them for like under $1 or something, and sold them for 600 or 700%. So I still have a couple of those, but they're mostly gone. I've got I think just 3 left. It's like insignificant position. Like if I need cash, I'll sell those. But
did you make any money on the Enovix sales?
Yeah. I basically doubled up. So
all right. So you tanked my shares. Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thanks.
I didn't. Well, you have calls though, so you're still.
Yeah, I got a bunch of calls and stuff.
Yeah, calls are too risky for me, so I didn't do that. So, but yeah, the Palantir thing, like, it was weird because I don't know, a month and a half ago, the bear cave thing, and Amit, you know all about this. Alex Karp was asked about this specifically about short seller, and he responded in an interview, and he said, the bears can stare in the bear cave if they're not sure, like, that we have a legit, there were AI imposters, they can ask the Russians. And it was just kind of a one-off comment. I loved that.
I see where you're going with this.
Where you're not like as a billionaire, and I know TJ Rogers is in a different role, but when you're not going out there and publishing stuff to try to bring down, and I know Palantir is printing money right now, so they're fine, but still, I loved his approach, and I contrasted that with TJ Rogers, and TJ Rogers is awesome, but I'm like, man, it just didn't sit with me with where I thought that the capital was that they needed. And it makes sense, if they're going to need to raise capital within like the next 6 to 8 months, but maybe there's something we don't know.
Also 2 years ago in 2020, maybe those same guys came after ENPHASE, and they were saying it's overvalued, and that it's whatever. It's the same shit. And I specifically remember, and people can keep me honest, that when they asked Badri about that on the call, he was just like, "I'm not going to waste my time with the short sellers because I'm just going to continue to execute and prove them wrong." Like, in other words, the best.
He also said our books are done by Deloitte. Go ahead and check them out. Okay, so
I remember that.
So yeah,
Crossroads. Real Chris, what were you gonna ask?
No, I was just gonna say, just to be fair, don't use the accounting firm as some sort of like proxy for credibility, because trust me, Deloitte has been called out a bunch of times. KPMG has been called out. Accounting firms routinely like get touted like, oh my God, these guys are the smartest guys. Like, why would we have any issues with it? And then you find out later on that, hey, the books were actually not as clean because the data that the accounting firms were being provided was fraudulent. So I just want to make that clear. So it's not so much that whoever did the auditing, it's just because if you provide them bullshit, they're going to give you bullshit, so just FYI, but go on. Sorry.
The difference is when you have 1.8 billion in the bank and you're still making 200 million a quarter, you're okay.
Yeah, making money, you don't need to raise. So
yeah.
Okay, so I have a question. So I have a series of questions, actually. This comes up, it'll be yes or no, then we're going to get to the punchline question. Crossroads, would you classify yourself as a troglodyte?
Troglodyte?
Yes. No. Okay, that's question 1. Question number 2. Have you started a YouTube channel about Palantir videos?
I have not. No.
Okay. So question number 3, given you're not a troglodyte, and given you don't have what people would argue biased incentive to talk nicely about Palantir, can you give me a 2 to 3 minute bull case? Because I think you're a pretty intelligent guy. I see you on Twitter. You're a fan of the pod. For why you are bullish on Palantir, why you've got a significant amount of capital.
How do we switch to this? We were talking about
we haven't talked about Palantir in a long time.
Just invite him on Friday, dude. Why don't you just invite him on Friday?
Yeah,
you
actually save your Palantir talk for
2-minute bull case on why you're bullish on Palantir.
We have 3 minutes left. Let's talk about why did you buy ENPHASE today?
See, this is what happens when I bring up Palantir.
I'll give you.
Everyone is like, nope, shut it down immediately.
I'll give you a minute of both, and then you guys can have a minute to wrap, because I know one of you, or at least a couple of you, need to go. So for Palantir, it is over 50% of my personal stock. Now I have a lot. I have not a lot, but I have a good chunk of like S&P 500 and index fund that's on the side, and that's more than what I have individually invested. So that's just kind of the core nest egg. But yeah, Palantir, it's a little overpriced right now. I think fair value is for me $14 to $15. Depends how earnings hits. But it's a position that I think Chris has said it well, that it's going to be like, I forgot the name of the company. Help me out, Chris. It's not Finesse. Salesforce. Thank you. Salesforce. Yeah, it's going to be that slow S curve.
It's going to be like
as
Upstart?
a base case.
Is that what he said?
No. But as a base case, it's a slow S curve, and I think that there's a good chance, just because we're at the very beginning of an AI, and it's not even a bubble right now, that's going to see mass AI adoption. I think that most companies that are adopting AI are going to do quite well, and I actually expect that we're going to maybe see something like the Roaring '20s, called Coolidge prosperity, that hopefully not the Great Depression afterwards, just because of broad scale AI adoption in the United States. So I'm very excited about that. I think Palantir is going to be a big part of that. In the commercial sector, you can just see how they're going from, like, they're just dominating certain industries, airlines certainly, and at this point hospitals, like that's their game. And so just industry by industry, they're going. They have a slow plan, but it's like a little boulder that's rolling down the hill and gets massive, and causes this massive avalanche. So as far as ENPHASE, that it's the same thing. That it's just a small bit of solar adoption at this point. That even if, and I think Chris is right that it's going to slow. We don't have solar yet. And I'm like maybe a year away from finishing the PhD, hopefully a little bit less. But once we know we're settled, even if interest rates are high, we're looking at getting that Tesla purchase, and then we're looking at doing the solar. We just don't want to do that before we move. But I am a little bit less likely to do that with the interest rates. But even if solar adoption is going to continue to increase, there's only two microinverter companies, really. There's some small ones, but I don't think they really count for much. And I really like their technology. I think it's phenomenal. They continue to innovate. I don't know, as far as the EV, not the EV battery, the home chargers that they're doing. I think that'll be pretty good, but I don't know what that'll be. I don't price that in. But this company has only one way to go, and that's
their
like
EV charger.
Yeah, go ahead.
Their EV charger is one of the things I like least about them. When you start to price it, and then like $2,500, that's like, come on.
Oh, well, the thing is, when they're going to sell you the whole solar system, if they say, okay, we're going to get you a heat pump, we're going to give you a solar system, we're going to give you a battery, we're going to give you a charger, you just buy everything, you have one bill, that's it, you're done. That's what it's going to be, right?
I'm glad you brought that up, because that was the one quick thing, because I know that we're wrapping up. One quick thing he did say on the call, which I think was telling. Where was it? He was saying, our gross margins get better at every new product. But where was that part that he said? He made a point to say that they do not and will not get into any new product or service that they have not already done the research on to have improved gross margins. I'm trying to find that.
While you're looking for that crossroads, which is bigger in 10 years, ENPHASE or Palantir?
As far as market cap,
yes,
Palantir.
Thank you. Very good. Right answer.
I mean, it's already bigger, right, guys? I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it's going to be 3 times as big.
And
it's going to grow faster. But I mean, like in Palantir, there is risk there. I think it's more opportunity cost risk.
I agree.
There's a chance.
I think ENPHASE is actually less riskier than Palantir to an extent.
Yeah. ENPHASE,
well, as it goes down, absolutely. First of all,
but at the same time, ENPHASE, like again, we talked about this. There's a physical product there. You can know what that thing costs, right? And you know what you can do to drive the cost of that thing down, and you know what it's worth on the open market. And AI is a little bit harder. So until, like we talk about headlines, until there are enough headlines that are not military related, that are saying because of Palantir software, X, Y, and Z company beats revenue by blah, blah, blah. And then every company's like, oh, fuck, I need to get on that software. I don't think you're going to see that increase in market cap, or at least have it be justified where people go, yeah, this company's fair valued. Because if you don't use Palantir, you're not going to get that premium.
Yeah,
I'm surprised. I have to take a step back and just say I'm surprised that people are so bullish on Palantir right now, still, considering that there are so many good deals out there in the market right now. And like every time I look at the market, and I'm just like, y'all know that they're barely making a profit. Number one, a lot of that is just financial engineering, right? 2, their growth rate has gone down from the 50s and 60s% to like, I think 18% last quarter. They guided for 30%, which clearly they're not living up to. The market environment's a lot poorer, in terms of like their products, because there's other competitors at the wings. So, I understand the the thesis behind Palantir, but as far as performance, it's not there. If numbers change, yeah, I'll believe it. The better thing to do right now is just to keep a higher class portfolio. Just there are undervalued companies fundamentally that are generating a shit ton of cash flow that are not appreciated, and some whose cash flows are literally around the corner, yet people are not buying them. Like the one that comes to mind right now, honestly, is Disney. Like I know I'm gonna sound like an idiot right now, but just I'm telling you,
the episode too.
PayPal.
Disney is one of those most. Like as I do my due diligence, right? I realized that this is the same thing that happened to Meta, where everyone was like, oh, Meta is like this woke, blah, 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 all this stuff that happens. And then they don't look at the fundamentals. They don't look at the numbers. And then comes the earnings. And then people are like, wait a second, there's value here. And then it just fucking skyrockets. And it's the same logic that I'm seeing with Disney, where people are like, woke is broke, and I agree with them to a certain extent. Don't get me wrong. The problem is people are not anticipating all this additional savings that they're going to get. And then all of that stuff is going to end up going right into their bottom line. And I think a lot of people have prematurely predicted the death of Disney, where I was listening to some of their conference calls and like just the same thing as Meta. They've got some goddamn killers on their board that they've put on there who are doing exceptionally well at doing a lot of cost rationalization. So if you're telling me, Chris, right now what's a better value play, Palantir or Disney, bro, I'll go with House of the Mouse.
Yeah, but Chris, I think you're right on the Palantir thing, but not for any of the reasons you said. I think all the reasons you said are actually kind of bad. The only reason you're right on it is because it's already up 150%. That's why Palantir at 16, 17 bucks is not good. It's not because of the competition or all that stuff. That stuff is qualitative. The fact that it's doubled, yeah, don't touch Palantir right now. Maybe Disney's a better buy. But
that was the argument. That was the argument I was making about Nubank. Like it was when it was $5. Oh my God, it was a no-brainer. They printed money. It's everywhere. It's falling out. It's on. They put money on the shelves. They're selling money on the shelves. But now it's 30% from its all-time highs.
The point of my diatribe here was that look for the value companies right now, because those will fare exceptionally well during a more tougher time from the credit markets. They'll be actually able to survive. They'll be able to retain their value. And then when things go up, they'll be on the other side of it and they'll do much better. On the other hand, you've got other companies, their valuations are so extended that right now, I mean, having 50% of your portfolio in Palantir, I don't know, Crossroads, that seems a little bit, on the rich side of things.
Granted, we don't know his average.
That's a good point too. That's a good point. That is a very good point.
30%, and he's still fine.
That's the difference. Yeah. It's there's an allocation average, right? Percentage, how much of your allocated capital, and then there's how much of like your return or your portfolio value is. And it's
like a $15 average on Palantir is way more risky than a $7, $8, $9, $10, or $11 average.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
Same thing with ENPHASE. Yeah. Why? At least why?
Yeah, I mean, we're still in profit, and we're all pretty much going to still be in profit because we were there under $10.
Crossroads, go ahead. Let him talk, and then Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
So I've basically projected like how many shares I need of Palantir, and I'm there, and that's why I'm not selling anymore. I have the leaps. I'll sell at some point. I'll wait to see how earnings are. And if I don't need the money for something else, I'm just going to wait until a long-term capital gains. I don't have to wait that long on one, and I mean it's just three, honestly. So it's not a big deal there. And then I've got Tesla, ENPHASE. I sold my Innovix, SoFi, and a short-term Robinhood, and that's pretty much it. Like everything else is. So, but as I sell out, as SoFi, if SoFi has very good earnings, I'm probably going to sell about half of that position. Robinhood as well. PayPal, I've been adding more. PayPal is a really good value right now. Don't personally love Disney, but that's you guys.
I don't like it either.
You're probably right, Chris. You're smart, but
yeah, because I don't get
the thing is between if you were to have limited funds between PayPal and Disney, I would obviously pick PayPal. It's an easier bet, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And what do you think, Chris? Because you're now actively making bets. Are you just buying both, or PayPal is the easier bet?
I would say, honestly, just for the valuation, I would say Disney. I'm a little biased though because I've worked for companies and for some of those companies that they own, and so it's a little different. It's like what's his name was saying about buying like the retail investor having an advantage over institutions because you're there in the companies. Like you just see the company culture differently.
I don't care about any of that. I think Disney Plus is trash. That's why I'm really looking forward to Chris's DD because I really don't don't get the bull case at all for Disney. So
you'll be buying calls because
look,
Tiger is it.
Well, we can talk about this another day, but basically, when a stock is a value play, an obvious value play like Disney at 85. It's just it's an obvious value. There is upside there. Like
There is upside, 100%.
no one is denying that there is a 20%
What do you
bump.
think? What do you think the market cap of Disney is right now?
200 billion, 150 billion?
I would say it's like 95 billion, right?
No, 140 billion, right between the two of you. It's trading at levels that yeah, it was trading. It's trading at levels that
pandemic
2014.
lows. Yeah.
No, even lower than pandemic lows. I think at this point
in March.
You know.
Yeah.
No. There's a value play, and we know Chris goes after the value plays. But if you were to once again say, is Disney $160 stock, and how long do I have to wait for that? I hope people are not following for that trade. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, Chris is
Well,
patient.
it's going to be a little bit. It's going to be faster than you think. Believe it or not.
These call options.
5 years.
These call options are gonna print.
I'm not looking forward to the I'm leaning towards Vitaly here on Disney. I don't think 160 is like quicker.
I'm glad you guys are, because that's the key that I always love, because there are so many hidden things about this that if you look very
all right, but why don't we do a
level,
full episode,
you wouldn't
because
catch it.
I also have to go because it's already
we'll do it on Sunday. Sunday will be good.
So
So make sure you're on Finance Junkies on Sunday.
Full
Crossroads,
Disney
thanks for joining
episode.
us. We'll be on the new channel on Sunday, and we'll do the Disney episode, and we'll talk everything Disney.
Yep.
All right, everybody.
Later.
Thank you.
Bye.
You guys Sunday. Have a good
Alex,
weekend. Bye bye.
Sorry.
Thanks, Crossroads.
See ya.